You've been there before. Someone's praised or complimented you, only for your initial positive reaction to slowly die down as you begin questioning what this person wants from you. Or you've praised or complimented someone else, only to see them squirm in front of you as they clearly have no idea what to do with the words you've just told them, and the interaction becomes incredibly awkward. I've been in these situations multiple times and I would much rather kiss a dead frog than face them again. So here's why most praise doesn't work and what we can do about it. In his book, Nonviolent Communication, Marshall B. Rosenberg highlights how most praise and compliments are life alienating because we deliver them as judgments of the other person, whilst revealing hardly anything about what's going on inside of us. And a judgment is a judgment, regardless of whether it's positive or negative. But Lewis, praise works, I hear you object behind the screen. If bosses praise their employees, they work harder. If parents praise their children, they behave better. If I praise that attractive stranger I want to get her number from across the bar, then she'll like me, right? Correct. The standard way of praising people does work, initially, until that praise fades and that person starts to question what we want from them. For example, your boss's praise of your productivity just seems like a ploy to make you work more, or that stranger's compliment towards you about how you're such a good person or how you're so beautiful just seems like a ploy to soften you up so they can get in your knickers. There's a short story to illustrate how we use praise to influence others without understanding how they're receiving it. One day, two Native Americans were sat by their horse stable, and one of them said to the other, "Watch me use positive psychology on my horse." So he walks over to the horse, whilst grinning at his friend, and says out loud, so the horse can hear, "I have the fastest and most courageous horse in the West." But the horse looks at the man with a sad look and says to himself out loud, "Look at that, he's gone and bought himself another horse." So the moral of the story is, until you learn how to praise correctly, other people will wrongly receive your praise. Here's how to do it. Nonviolent communication teaches us to celebrate the person without expecting anything in return. But to do so, you must first ask yourself this question. How has my life been enriched by this person? Then you express your praise or compliment based on three things. The actions that have contributed to your well-being, the particular needs of yours that have been fulfilled, and the pleasurable feelings created by the fulfillment of those needs. A non-violent communication praise would sound like this. This is what you did, this is what I feel, and this is the need of mine that was met. For example, "You're so helpful" becomes, "When you gave me a lift to work this morning, I felt relieved because I really didn't want to be late." "You're so caring" becomes, "When you came to visit me when I was ill, I felt loved and cared for because I had been feeling lonely all week." "You're such a great communicator" becomes, "When you listen to me without interrupting, I feel such appreciation because I don't feel the need to rush my words to keep your attention." "You're so good at your job" becomes, "When you stayed behind to help the team out, I felt at ease because I really needed to send the project to the client on time." "You're great" becomes, "When you put such effort into your work, I feel proud because I really want to see you succeed. And when you watch my videos, I feel grateful because it shows you're willing to listen to what I have to say." Give me a kiss. Moving on. Okay. How would you use this when complimenting someone's appearance, I hear you ask? You might want to give your compliments with "I think" or "I like." "You're beautiful" becomes, "I really like your outfit today. When I look at it, I get the same feeling as if I'm looking at a piece of art." Or "You're fascinating" becomes, "When you talk about topics in such detail, I feel more connected to you because it helps me understand your experience more." And "You're attractive" becomes, "When you flick your hair to the side and look." You notice how you don't always have to explicitly state your need, because it is included in the subtext of what you're saying. So the key thing to remember is, when praising people, celebrate them. Don't manipulate them by expecting something in return for your praise. And I know what your objection is to the framework we just covered, but Lewis, that's such a long-winded way of praising or complimenting people. Yes, it is. But the connection you build with the person you're praising will be so much deeper. And furthermore, by stating the need of yours the other person has met through their action, you signal how that need is your responsibility, not theirs. Because praise becomes manipulative when you do it in order to get something from someone. Setting up a dynamic where the person you're praising needs to do the thing you're praising them for more in order to please you. To go one step deeper, I've realised most people can't take praise because of one of two reasons. Number one, they doubt they deserve it, and two, they fear living up to it. But By praising people through the framework we just covered, you signal clearly to the other person how their actions have made you feel and have had a positive effect on your life. But if you're still ambivalent as to whether people are going to question the intentions behind your praise, then here's something else you might want to do, as demonstrated by Sufi Muslims. Some Sufi Muslims, when they want to praise you, will lock thumbs with you, kiss your hand and say, "It was the God in you that allowed you to do that." This way, by praising something beyond that person, like a god or a universal guiding force, you avoid throwing all of the spotlight onto them and making them feel uncomfortable, whilst still acknowledging the positive thing that happened. In other words, you enable them to maintain their humility. Because the truth is, most of us are deprived of praise. And we don't give people praise because we live in a very frank culture. And by frank, what I mean is, when you adopt a frank mindset, you believe you're right most of the time, other people are similar to you, and praise is unnecessary because it would only inflate other people's ego. However, the opposing mindset is to be polite, where you appreciate psychological complexity when you socialize, understanding that no idea anyone proposes is 100% wrong, no person is 100% dispensable, and people are fundamentally different from you. And lastly, you believe that we're all seconds away from falling apart at any given moment in time. So when you praise people through the framework we covered, you gift them respite from their debilitating self-doubt and depression, and you act as a ray of light in the world. Now let's finish this video with a dialogue example of how Marshall B. Rosenberg, the author of Nonviolent Communication, positively challenged a woman's vague praise of him. This woman approached him after one of his workshops. "Marshall, you're brilliant. I'm not able to get as much out of your appreciation as I'd like." "Why? What do you mean?" "You see, in my lifetime I've been called multiple names, but I can't remember seriously learning anything by being told what I am. I'd like to learn from your praise and enjoy it, but first I'd need more information." "Like what?" "First, I'd like to know what I did or said that made life more wonderful for you." "Well, you're so intelligent. I'm afraid you've just given me another judgment, and I'm still left wondering what I did or said that made life more wonderful for you." Well, look at my notes. Look at those two places. It was those two things you said." "Ah, so it was my saying those two things that you appreciate." "Yes." "Next, I'd like to know how you feel in conjunction to those two things I said." "Hopeful and relieved. Now I'd like to know what needs of yours were fulfilled by my saying those two things." "Well, you see, I've got this 18-year-old son who I've been struggling to communicate with, and I've been trying to learn everything I can about how to communicate with him from a more loving place. But it was those two things you said that has given me a lot of direction." So remember, praise works best the more specific you can be. So when you're praising others, speak like a poet by moving away from vague generalities to honed specifics. And bonus tip, praise others for the effort they put in, not their accomplishments. And yourself. Stay disciplined, playful and dangerous. Adios muchachos y muchachas.